Hello and welcome to Genealogy Coffee Break. My name is JD Arden. I am here virtually with my colleagues from the Center for Jewish History Library, including Moria Amit and others from our library staff. Today, I'm very happy to share with everybody online um, our research suggestions and tools and search paths that we, the genealogy librarians at Center for Jewish History in New York, can recommend to you. Um, Now, most of these resources are resources and tools, online databases that anyone could access from home online. Some of the resources we might suggest might be specific to your local library. It can't hurt to know about what ways that you can use your local library through your library card from home um, that you can access and use at this time. So let's get started. What I would like to share with everyone today are some general points about how we in the library can help you do your family history research. Um, we have a lot of tools for Jewish genealogy, but you don't need to be Jewish to ask us questions. Keep in mind our email is gi@cjh.org. And in this presentation, I will be sharing some research tips and websites that we recommend, specific today to those Jewish communities who basically, uh, from the diaspora from Israel, headed either across North Africa or through the top of southern Europe to medieval Spain, um, created specific communities in what in Hebrew is designated Sfarad, meaning Spain, basically medieval Spain. Those communities came to be known as Sephardi. Um, in a broader sense, I'll also talk today about those Jewish communities whose diaspora from ancient Israel stayed or rotated around North Africa and the Middle East, um, known today as Mizrahi Jewish communities. There's a lot of overlap back and forth. We'll talk about that later. But basically, I want to demonstrate and share with everyone how we at Center for Jewish History have a very wide, all-encompassing collection of all corners of the Jewish diaspora, including Jewish communities from North Africa, the Middle East. Types of records that we can help point you to, types of things that you might now in your family detective role go ask your relatives about, go look for those shoeboxes full of old documents in somebody's closet. Um, Marriage, death, divorce, anywhere that somebody's life event overlaps with document production. What resources we in the library can point you to that can make a really nice context for your family history work include newspapers, maps, photographs of towns. So what we're really good at Center for Jewish History is giving the context and making the history come alive so that the people you're researching in your imagination, you can imagine what their lives may have been like. Types of life events that you might have in mind, or others that you might not have thought of. Um, it's a really good place to start to think about the first immigrant ancestor in your family who came to the US and may have applied for US citizenship. Um, some of those documents may be online, but not all. So send us a comment, send us an email at gi@cjh.org if you have questions about where you might find your ancestors' application for naturalization, among other types of documents in the US. The first site that I'll share with you is called Archive Grid. You can type in the name of a town or a city and find archival collections all over the world that may have to do with that city. So you can see scrolling up the screen, Jewish community of Salonika. That is one of the archival collections that we hold in the Center for Jewish History building. We are happy to be making more and more of these kind of collections available digitally through donations and support that people could provide. But this is a great place to see what's out there in our archive and other archives that might relate to the history of a certain town. So Salonika today in present-day Greece, also known as Thessaloniki, formerly part of the Ottoman Empire, uh, included Jews who, after 1492, escaped from Spain, as well as other Jewish communities that had been circulating around the Mediterranean basin. Here is our catalog. I invite everybody to go check out the website search.cjh.org. You can type in a town name. You could put, like I did here, Salonika. You could put Aleppo. You could put Baghdad. You could put Kurdistan, and see the archive and library treasures that we have, many of which you can read online. And in the future, when we're back in the building, we have an excellent program now of making digital scans available to you from a remote location. For we can send you scans of material when available. Here's an example of one of the collections that we have in the building. When immigrants came to the US, they often joined these community organizations. So this is a great way to find family history treasures that would not be available anywhere else, and give you a window into the experience of immigrant ancestors' lives once they came to the US. This are some of the examples of the types of files that we have in such a collection. This book I note here because through a catalog like WorldCat, worldcat.org, where you can find books in other libraries, you could look for this title, Diccionario Sephardi de Sobrenomes. You might find either in an online bookseller or through your local library if you're not able to come to our building in person. So this is a great resource that to show this example. Within this book that's trilingual in Spanish, Portuguese, and English, you can look up Sephardic in the very broad sense of medieval Spain, North Africa, and those expulsion communities that moved either to the Middle East or in some cases to Western or Eastern Europe. You can find spelling variations, you can find Jewish community organizations where that name was listed. So it's a very good resource to get a starting point for your research. Know what name, spelling variations you can find, see photographs. It's a really great book that we have in our reference library. Here is another great example of an archive collection in the Center for Jewish History held by ASF, a Brit Milah register from North Africa over 100 years ago, in very nice, clean handwriting. So if you read Hebrew or with suggested resources we can help you find translations, you can look through these types of records to look for family names that might be in your family. Spanish and Portuguese congregation in London. Also, I'll mention briefly Ketubot, or Jewish marriage contracts, are a really great resource. Many of the Ketubot from our institution and other local Jewish institutions have been uploaded to the website of the National Library of Israel. This, if you Google NLI Ketubot, you can get easily to this website that has an English, Hebrew, or Arabic interface. The search term has to be entered in Hebrew at this point, but here to demonstrate the search path, you can see it's fairly easy to navigate. Once you switch to the Hebrew interface, then you can choose Medina, meaning country, and the Ir, the city that you're looking for. So, for example, if in this case I put Syria as the search term, you can scroll through many examples of marriage contracts from Jewish communities in Syria, and in nice resolution, you can zoom in and look through these documents. And we're proud that we at Center for Jewish History have contributed our part to this global Jewish community resource. Other types of resources that we in the library could help you navigate while you're doing research: the Sephardic style script, Solitreo, in print, also known as Rashi script, can be helpful when deciphering letters, old documents. I'll just mention to keep in mind other resources that we have that you can find through our catalog, search.cjh.org, including oral histories that are playable online. And if you have any questions, research questions, what we're happy to help researchers learn are good techniques that can help you have a more fulfilling and productive time as the family history detective. Online resources that you might be able to access from home include Ancestry, that many people now can access through their library cards. If you don't have a library card at your local library yet, ask them if they offer an electronic library card that can get you access to Ancestry.com. Otherwise, FamilySearch.org is a free resource along with JewishGen. I'll just demonstrate quickly. If, for example, you're on Ancestry.com and you wanted to look up people with the family name Cohen from Syria, born around 1940, plus or minus, then you could look through such examples, including family trees, naturalization records. So there are a lot of tricks that you can use to cast a wide net if you're doing family history or historical research, to look for documents you produced maybe in the US, but referencing experience abroad. The same type of search on the free website familysearch.org. If you don't have access to Ancestry, will look like this. That includes links to digitized documents. So these are a couple free and very worthwhile resources that I encourage everyone to investigate. Findagrave.com, also free if you're doing cemetery research. And familysearch.org is free with an email, and you don't need to enter any of your own personal information on the site. You can just use it as a research tool. Here's an example if you wanted to do historical research of Jewish population from the Ottoman Empire, today Turkey. Some search term clues that you can see on the screen here under nationality, for example. Sometime it might be noted as Hebrew nationality. Sometimes it's noted as the citizenship of the country, in this case Turkey. So this is a good way to do some investigating and detective work if you have ancestors who may have immigrated from place to place, as was often the case. Family Search also has a lot of informational pages that you can browse having to do with Sephardic and Mizrahi communities that I'll just mention there and leave you to investigate. Jenny.com, kind of like the Wikipedia of genealogy research. You may find that someone out there has uploaded information about your family tree that you can connect to. Really as good as the information that might be out there. SephardicGen.org, of course, is a resource that we recommend, along with the companion site JewishGen.org. And so I'll just mention that briefly because these are free and hopefully easy enough to locate. Here's an example of the countries that are represented in that database. So here I see that David is asking about resources specific to us at Center for Jewish History. If you go to libguides.cjh.org, you can browse by topic or general geographic region or country. This is the example of the introduction page from our genealogy guide for Sephardic and Mizrahi research, and this is a great way to see all in one place what primary records we have, what reference books we have and recommend, what other archives in other institutions we recommend. So this not only represents material in the building Center for Jewish History, but also our expertise in crafting a list and a research path to make your research work easier and give you a list of places to check one by one, depending on what you're researching. I've linked with this little arrow to a really interesting site, the Iraqi Jewish Archive. If anyone is researching Jewish communities in Iraq, this website can be searched by general terms, not necessarily by a person's name, because the texts have been photographed, but as you can see, may not be in perfect condition, allowing the computer to have all of the information of certain names. but you can scroll through like I'm demonstrating here, and it's a really fascinating website of material that was saved by the US Army um, in the basement, from the basement of the secret police in Baghdad. This also includes Hebrew texts that were published in Aleppo. So if you're researching the cultural heritage of Jewish communities of Aleppo, this is a really beautiful treasure that that was saved and that is now visible online for free through this website. Here's an example of other archives in the world that we've listed. If you're looking for free and quick feedback from other researchers, take a look at the Facebook group Tracing the Tribe. Some of you may have come to this Facebook video through our posting on that site. This is a really wonderful site where quickly you can get feedback from thousands of other researchers around the world on various topics. It's a great way to reach out to other people. If you're looking for relatively quick and free translation of documents that are for your genealogy work, you can go to the Facebook group Genealogical Translation, where you can post an image, note the language, and get free feedback and sometimes helpful second opinions on any items that you need to have translated. Here's an example of how the world is getting smaller. Jewish communities from Bukhara in present-day Uzbekistan are among cemeteries included on this site. Find a Grave, so I wanted to mention that. Iraqi Jewish Archive, historical newspapers digitized by National Library of Israel is a great resource, and a way that you could search text for somebody's name, as well as just get an idea of the context of the community that you're researching. So I won't go to, but I'll just show the note of National Library of Israel Historical Jewish Press. Genealogy Indexer, if you're researching people who may have had businesses in historical Israel region across the Middle East and in Europe, you can search for a directory by location and then look through page by page to see what names and businesses come up that may have to do with your ancestors. Take a look also at our page, genealogy.cjh.org. If you are part of a community group or a school group, we're very happy to do Zoom workshops with community groups and schools. Get in touch with us. We can give more specific and more one-on-one attention. Also on our genealogy.cjh page, take a look at the synagogue map under the resources. It's now been updated to have a little bit different color scheme, but you can type in the name of a town and see what synagogues associated with that town existed over the last more than 100 years in Manhattan, in New York, and compare to what synagogue organizations and affiliated immigrant aid organizations were present for immigrants' lives in New York around the turn of the last century. So again, if you have other questions that you think of later, please email us at cgh.org. I'll mention briefly that we can also help you navigate DNA testing kits. There are a few out there, more or less, they're trying to have a niche corner by ethnic group. 23andMe is marketing itself more for the African American community to have more specific feedback for them. Family Tree DNA is marketing itself more for Jewish ethnic group, so results may be more specific if you're doing Jewish genealogy, which I'm noting here may be overrepresenting how close cousin matches are because of the historical situation of isolated Jewish populations and anti-Semitism. There was a lot higher rate of close cousin marriages, also known as endogamy, which amplify results in the testing. But in any case, it can be worthwhile. We don't promote directly any of these businesses, but we can certainly inform you about options like GEDmatch, where you can upload results to find lists of matches and email people that may match or have noted the family names that you're researching. You don't need to use your real name if you don't choose to on any of those sites. I'm just including this map here now as a way of pointing out how close the Mediterranean area really is, how small, which has something to do also with the DNA testing results where Jewish populations that self-identify most recently as Ashkenazi or Sephardi or Mizrahi in 95% work are more similar to other Jewish populations than to the majority country population. That is to say that in the Jewish diaspora, our populations weren't really separated long enough or far enough away to have different DNA profiles develop. So you can see, for example, if you imagine Syria is in southern Florida, it's not unimaginable to think of ancestors moving for marriage or business or to escape persecution back and forth from, let's say, Florida to Texas wouldn't be unimaginable in the US, and in the same way, across the Mediterranean was not unimaginable throughout history. This is an example of the lineage of Sephardic rabbis in Eastern Latvia that I'm familiar with from my own research. This is the rabbi, if you can read Hebrew, the family name is Don Yechia, a very typical Spanish-influenced name construction. So this is an example, and many of the researchers who've commented to us in the past couple of days have noted that there's a very strong history that is not fully researched and in some cases is hidden and may be impossible to trace exactly of Sephardic Jewish populations that fled through Europe into Eastern Europe and beyond, and illustrates how much there's overlap and cross-migration, so that in some ways history of Sephardic expulsion also is part of the history of Eastern Europe. Here's a wider map of the relative smallness in some cases of the Jewish diaspora and possible migration routes back and forth. To think about anyone who wants to do more reading about DNA tests, I cite a few interesting articles from the past few years. One of the more interesting ones published in Haaretz, um, doing research about the closest ethnic group genetically to Jewish people as the Kurds, which is interesting to research from historical and folk mythology points of view also. So we're happy to answer any questions. Keep us in mind for future Zoom presentations for your community group. Check out our website, and if there are any pressing questions now, please comment them in the comment box. Otherwise, you can always keep our email gi@cjh.org in mind. Sign up for updates through the website in the middle of the screen. And if you like these types of free research and genealogy help productions and workshops that we make available, like this Facebook Live video, please consider donating at cjh.org/donate now. And we'll be happy to see you again in person in our building, or if you're working from abroad, to be in touch with you by email and chat, like we usually are, and especially these days. So I hope that you will interact with our Facebook page, send us a message. If you have a pressing topic for genealogy that you would love to see us do in one of our upcoming Facebook Live videos, we're open to suggestions. So please let us know, either commenting below or sending us an email. Thank you and have a great day.